Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Day One podcast. I'm Giselle Quintanilla, and I'm the publishing strategist at Ready Writer Services LLC. Y'all already know, if you have been listening for a while this year, you know that the Day One podcast is all about sharing stories of the amazing women who decided to step into their day one, right? Who said yes to either writing their book or launching their business, saying yes to the call that God had on their lives. And so I'm excited. I'm excited because every single episode this year has been so divinely instructed by God. And I love how He just orders our steps. So I am grateful for every single guest that has been here, that has shared their day one story, that has, just been open and honest about even the struggles, right? Or, the fear they had to overcome or whatever it was. So I'm always grateful for that. And now we are nearing the end of 2025. And that's amazing to me. It is amazing. I don't know how your year has gone, but it has been interesting. And I cannot say it's been a bad year. I can't say I can't wait for this month or this week or this year to be over. I think that for a long time, I was like, you know what? I am grateful. I woke up this morning. I was able to move around. I was able to breathe, right, with with no issues. I was able to complete assignments or see my kids or talk to family or whatever it is that you are doing. Take a moment and really just be grateful. Let's just practice gratitude in this month of November, which is so fitting, right? Let's practice gratitude as we are finishing an amazing year. No matter what the low was, there was a high, I'm sure, with it. So I'm grateful. And today I am extra grateful for an incredible guest. I am just so in awe of just how she speaks, how she carries herself, her story. I had the honor of hearing her story on a Born to Risk mastermind that I went on virtually a few months ago. And so it's just been an amazing journey. And I'm not going to belabor it. I really just always want to honor the women that God puts on my heart to be on this podcast that really just open up, right? And share. And so I'm going to bring her on so I can explain further how I met this amazing woman. And my guest today, hi Karen.
Giselle, so nice to be here.
Oh, thank you for being here. My guest today, y'all, is Karen Marchione, and Karen Marchione is an author. She is a radio host. She's the host of the Hope Show, and wait until you hear about that. She's an advocate for resilience, and so she was a teacher. Right. And then, ran her own business and she's just from there. It's been an amazing journey teaching students with special needs for 20 years. And yeah, and then she wrote her book, y'all. And her book is entitled Hope: How Other People Endure. And I love that. So, those of you who listen and know me, I love a good acronym. I love, so it's just when you can take a word and you can give it even more meaning, it's a beautiful thing, right? Because I love words. You guys know I love words. And so Hope: How Other People Endure. It was that. I remember, Karen, listening to you on on the Born to Risk Mastermind.
Yeah.
And I promise you, because I was taking notes as each speaker was talking. But when you said that, I was like, that was what I wrote down. I wrote down how other people endure, because that is hope. It is
Right.
literally how we endure. It is hope.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and it was just so beautiful. And so from there, everybody, y'all who are listening, from there, I was like on stalker mode, right? Because I knew I was going to an event that evening.
Right.
um, and Karen said she was going to be there. And so because she said she was giving, I'm like, I have to make sure that I talk to her, before I leave the event. And we talked, and you are just such a sweet, sweet spirit.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much.
So I'm grateful that today you get to our listeners get to hear your story and get to hear directly from you. And I know that it's just going to be amazing. So I am going to get off now. I'm going to go give you your space to talk to the listeners, to share from your heart, and when I come back, we're going to just go ahead and chat. So,
All right.
right, Karen.
That sounds good. Thank you. I'm so grateful and thankful to be here. Um, I would never have thought that this was going to be something that I would be doing. Hosting a radio show, being on podcasts, that was the farthest thing from my mind. In my retirement years, I started the Hope Show in January, and that came to be because of my book, Hope: How Other People Endure. The person who and how my book came about is through a sifu, a master in a kung fu school. My son is a black belt in kung fu, and I tried, but as we get older, certain things don't work as well. So I did this slower Tai Chi, which was wonderful. And one day, Sifu said to me, as he listened to me talking about my days, said, he was going to be involved in a seminar about leadership, and said I should go and it may change my life. So I went. And the question was, what would you do if money didn't matter? Well, money always matters, but let's just think outside the box. And I said, I'd write a book because I certainly have a story. And I think everybody has a story. And I've learned that is very true. So that's how the idea of the book began. Now, the word hope and the acronym Hope: How Other People Endure came to me, and it was truly a message from God. I was literally driving down the road after I had been at this seminar, thinking of a title for this book that I was thinking about writing. And hope came to me. Hope: How Other People Endure. So from there, the, the hardest thing to do is get started. There was an article in an Oprah magazine, and it was about stories, telling your story. I did not win that, but what it did is it got me started writing. And so I wrote part of my story. Part of my story is, as a youngster and in my adult life, I realized, I had an idyllic young childhood. We were a family. My parents were very religious. I was raised in the Nazarene Church. If you've ever heard of that, it's a Protestant sect, fairly evangelical. And there were four of us, four kids, in a small Cape Cod house. But the neighborhood was new, full of children. We were always outside playing. My younger sister was 10 months younger than I. So we were very close. When she started middle school, she had difficulty. We walked about a half a mile to a bus stop, and she had trouble walking home one day, the first day of school. So my parents were fairly concerned about that. They took her to a friend who was a doctor, and he didn't know what it was. Went to the pediatrician, went to the hospital, had surgeries. What ended up that they discovered was that she had a cancer. Now, it took a year for them to find out. Because of my parents' faith, they knew they just knew God had a plan, and whatever His will was, they would abide by it. For me, as a teenager, she was 12, I was 13. Growing up in the church, hearing of miracles, I became a little angry, that she had this diagnosis. I mean, she went through a lot that year that they were trying to figure out what it was. This was in the 60s. I'll just kind of preference it. You can guess how old I am, but this was in the 60s, and I hadn't even heard of cancer or knew what that was. And one hospital she was there for a week of tests, told my parents to take her home and keep her busy. She's not sick. And my parents just knew that was not her personality. I mean, I could tell you that was not her personality. She was a doer. So my mother wrote a letter to another hospital in New York because she had heard that they were very great. And they responded, and they said, we would love to see your daughter. They went in, they spent hours with her, and that's where she was diagnosed in New York Presbyterian. She was diagnosed with neuroblastoma, which they still do not have a cure for today. Typically, it's found in babies or young children. What they believe happened is when she was starting puberty, the cells were activated, and the disease took its toll. They didn't know how long she had to live once she was diagnosed, but she was a trooper. She went through chemotherapy and radiation. My family still went on vacations, went to friends' weddings. We didn't stop living and because of her diagnosis, and she went everywhere. Unfortunately, she did pass after a year after her diagnosis. So the whole time it was about 2 years. So I continued on in my life, but, really kind of angry, and had kind of wondered if there was a God. However, I can say now that God was always watching out for me, and He always had a plan. And I think He put Sifu, this man that was the master of my son's Kung Fu class, I think he was put in my life or in our lives for a reason. It was to write this book. And as my life continued on, I went to college, graduated, and I did start teaching after college. However, I just felt that I taught for 5 years, and I just felt that there were other opportunities. In fact, there were not enough kids to fill the classrooms. I was working with kids that were low or high on the standardized testing. My job was not in jeopardy, but many of the classroom teachers were, because there were just not enough kids to fill the classroom. So I was just thinking about other opportunities, and the educational system offered a career change course. I took it, and they said, can't just go in and tell people you're a teacher and understand what that meant. So I just tried to think about, some of the things I wanted. And through connections, which is important in all aspects of our life, through connections, I ended up being hired in the furniture industry. The reason I ended up taking the job is because, I was just looking for other opportunities, but when the opportunity was given to me, it's then, oh no, what do I do now? Do I leave my career and move on to something else? One teacher said to me, you'll never have to ask yourself, what if? So you can always go back to teaching, but you'll never know if you don't try. So I took the job. And I was very nervous at first because it didn't seem to be exactly what I wanted. I was commuting from Dover, New Jersey into the city, which was an hour bus ride. Um, However, I was learning every day about the product. Sooner or later, there was a building, it was an architects and designers building that the showroom I was working in was held. And there was a man down the hall, always stopped by and said hello. And he had told a friend he had to meet the new girl at this showroom. So we met, and he called. I didn't know he came and scoped me out, but he then called, and we started dating. We went out. He took me to lunch. We started dating. Long story short, we did end up getting married. But first, he had been in the business for a long time, and he always wanted to start his own business, which would be a manufacturer's rep group representing small furniture companies. And I said, why not? Let's give it a try. And I was learning from him every day. We started our business working out of our apartment, our small one-bedroom apartment, and trying to create new business, find companies to represent. A year had gone by, and we signed a lease for a showroom. So this was exciting. We were going to have a showroom, a place to display our product. And yet most of our product, we would go to design firms or corporations with catalogs. But a showroom is a place where they could go and actually see the product. As we were designing the showroom, an architect friend was helping us. We had carpet tiles that we were installing, and I suddenly heard a thud. My husband fell over, and I could not wake him up. As it turns out, I called 911. I called a friend. She was going to meet me at the hospital. The EMTs showed up within minutes, and even in New York City. And they were great. They started working on him right away. We had a small elevator. He was 6 foot tall. They couldn't move him right away. And they worked on him for over an hour and then transported him to the hospital. The EMT said to me, he's got a 50-50 chance of survival. And I was like, what? He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm just waiting for John to wake up so I can go see him. When the doctor comes out and says, we lost him. I'm so sorry. We had a 3-year whirlwind relationship. I just, didn't know what to do at that point. My friend called my parents. My parents dropped everything and came into the city. And, you kind of go numb at the shock of all of this and go through the steps of creating the funeral and everything. And it's painful and it's hard. But I decided this business was, because we had the showroom, I felt that I didn't have any choice. Of course, there's always a choice, but I wanted to continue. I wanted to continue our dream and create the success. I was very lucky and am grateful for the fact that this one manufacturer stuck with us. They were very large in residential, and they wanted to get into the commercial furniture world. And so they stuck with me. I didn't know. I'm sure there were times where it was iffy, and I began to hire other people. And as the business began to grow, sometimes I would say, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. And I would reach out to friends, family members, people that I was meeting, in this new world that I was in. Years go by. I ended up there were times where we did set new records. We were in New York City, and that's what the companies expect. They expect it overnight, but it does take several years to get to that point. And we finally were the number one in a couple of sales companies. As time goes on, though, life gets lonely. And it was about 8 years later when I met another wonderful man. He was, again, I think he was a gift from God. He is the kindest, gentlest person I've ever, and strongest that I've ever met. We dated, this man and I, Victor, dated and married 2 years after we had met. He did have a son who was 8 years old at the time when we met. And as time goes on, as a person who was a teacher, I always wanted to have my own child, but my biological clock was ticking away. So I went to different doctors to try to see if science could help me along. And it did. It took 5 years, but my beautiful son, James, was born 5 years later. In the meantime, Victor, my husband, is a physician, and he loved worked very hard. He studied in Italy to get his degree, came back here and worked extra hours just to learn as much as he could possibly learn. But he wasn't feeling quite right. And a colleague asked him how he was feeling one day. And he says, well, I think I have a shoulder problem. Well, after this doctor decided to send him for some tests, and it came back that he had early onset Parkinson's disease. So at 46 years old, he had this diagnosis. He didn't want to believe it and went to about 3 or 4 other renowned hospitals to get confirmation to make sure. He was still in denial for 2 years. And then as the symptoms got worse and the pain was worse, we had to kind of accept reality. So he went to the doctors, he took the medications, and continued as he went on. At some point, he did have to slow down his practice. He no longer went to the hospitals and would just see patients in the office. They loved him. He had many Italian patients, and since he studied in Italy, he knew the language and they could converse in Italian. And they adored him. He was the doctor you always wanted to go to or always wanted to see. Excuse me. He was a pulmonologist, but took the whole body into consideration. At some point, his pain became severe. This was about several years after the diagnosis, and his pain was just severe. He had what was called dystonia, which was an involuntary movement of the muscles, and it would be twisting and turning. And it was, he has a scoliosis because of that twisting and turning. At one point with all this pain, we decided we have to consider the next step. He never wanted anyone messing with his brain, but we looked into what the next step would possibly be, and that was deep brain stimulation. So it's a brain surgery, excuse me. It's a brain surgery that connects you. They implant wires in the brain and connect it to pacemakers, wires are placed under the skin, and they get impulses to the brain to prevent the movement. So after this surgery, he no longer had that dystonia, those that major, we called it twisters, because it was like a hurricane in his body. Um, they stopped completely. The the surgery is not a cure, but it adds years to quality of life. I I praise God all the time for this and the years that he's had. He is 73 now, and he just retired, so he is doing very well.
That is awesome. Oh my goodness. Karen,
So,
thank you
so
so much.
oh, you're welcome. So these were stories in the back of my mind that I knew possibly could help other people. I mean, that was the purpose in me writing the book. To know not to just take a doctor's word for it, always get another opinion, or, people might not know. And that was from my sister's diagnosis, or people may not know about this brain surgery. I heard the other day no one had heard of deep brain stimulation for Parkinson's. So, that was my goal, to let people know about things in life that we all go through,
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and have to and want to keep going. We have to keep going.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing. I have so many notes. I always like to take notes when people talk because I there's so much that to unpack, right? When you
Right.
are sharing a story, there's just so much to unpack. And when you said that the question was asked, what would you do, right, if money didn't matter? And
Right.
what interesting is that that was the question that led me to starting Ready Writer Services LLC.
Wow.
Yeah, I was sitting with a friend. I didn't know what to do. I had tried other businesses, work, it's just nothing. And I'm like, what is my purpose, right? And
Mhm.
so she long story short, she sat with me in Barnes and Noble, and she was like, she was gonna help me, really uncover my purpose. And she said, like, if money didn't matter, if money wasn't a factor, what would you do the rest of your life?
Mm.
And I said, right, I want to write. So that's what I do. But I just thought that was so interesting, Karen. And I wanted to ask you, right, when your sister was going through what she was going through and her treatment, but yet you said your parents didn't, and you guys did not stop living. You kept traveling and going to events or family stuff.
Mhm.
um, and so what do you think, do you believe that that is, maybe there's somebody who is listening who is going through the same, right? Maybe not the same type of cancer, but maybe it's a sickness and they, are battling it.
Mhm.
What would you say? Yes, keep living, do the stuff, go out there. What would you do? And do you think that's a part of how other people endure?
I, I, there's another story in my book, of a man who was diagnosed with a cancer at stage 4, and um, you know, sometimes people don't want to tell others because for whatever their reasons, or they want to keep it private. He didn't want to tell anyone, but he kept going. He was also a seafood in the martial arts. His wife wanted him to slow down, but he just wanted to keep going. And I think it gave him purpose. And even my husband, he has survived and didn't have cancer, but um, getting up and having and going to work kept their mind off. I know for my husband, it kept his mind off of him and could focus on work or other people. I think that that's important, um, for you, for whatever you can do. I mean, if if you're in too much pain, that may not be possible. but whatever seems realistic, I do think that it could help, even if it's a walk around the block, to see the
Yeah.
sunshine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very transparent for you to share that you were angry with God, and that you even questioned, was there a God?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, if you are grieving or a loss, right? It is for us, I'm going to say us as believers, sometimes I've heard a lot of people say, like, oh, I know I'm not supposed to question God. Or, it's almost like you can't be angry. But I always say, he's our father.
Right.
And right. And if you feel, if something happens, let's say with your natural parents, right, your mom, your dad who live on the earth, if something happens and you get upset, you would go to your parents and,
Right.
and say you're upset. You would go to
Right.
your parents and say, why or what happened.
Mm.
And I think that the relationship that God wants with us is that of a father and a child. And so it would be
Absolutely.
fair, right,
Yeah.
to go to him in, and here's the thing. And I think that we need to understand that there is unrighteous anger and then there's righteous anger. There
Right.
is an anger that leads to unrighteousness, that leads to us doing or saying things that are hurtful, that we
Right.
shouldn't, right? And that's why the Bible says, be angry, but do not sin. So yes, we can be angry. We have a right. There is we're human. We are spirits having this human experience, living in this humanity and with emotions that God gave us. And
Right.
so, so if we're feeling that, I think that it's a way God makes that opportunity so that we do go to him, so that we
Yeah.
go to him even harder, right? And we go to
Mhm.
him deeper. And so what was that moment for you? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. So neighbor neighbor people in the building that I was living in gave me the book When Bad Things Happen to Good People by Rabbi Harold Kushner. And shortly after my husband passed and I had to do all this paperwork, I visited my aunt in Florida and I read this book. And at the time, it was very comforting. And I read where the rabbi was saying, people were questioning, oh, did this happen because I didn't go to synagogue or church? And he said, no, that's not the type of God we have. We have a loving God. So that was one message that was very important to me. The other thing I wanted to kind of catch you up with is in my retirement, it took me 7 years to write the book. And in my retirement, I said to my husband, because we always lived in condos, I let's 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 buy a house. Long story short, we ended up in Paramus, and I looked for a church that, my husband's Catholic, my son was raised Catholic, as I promised my mother-in-law, but that wasn't my upbringing, and I wanted to go back to basics. And I found a local church, uh, Grace Church in Ridgewood, and I'm becoming a member, and they're announcing it this month in November. And I was baptized 2 years ago, so I think I've kind of come full circle um, through this whole experience.
Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you. And congratulations on getting baptized. And, it is always good when you find a good local church, right? That teaches Bible, that helps you understand your faith and encourages you to develop your own relationship with God, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm excited. That's exciting. That's exciting. I wanted to ask you, in grief, right? So it's the holidays, it's
Yes.
holiday season,
Mhm.
and right, and so there's a lot of people who are celebrating and gathering with family and doing amazing things. But at the same time, and I'm somebody who is very aware of the fact that there are also people who are grieving, who
Yes.
are missing family members who won't be at these family gatherings,
Right.
or these outings that people have. And I try to be mindful of that, right? But for somebody who has lost a loved one, um, who is in that space where you were, and now it's, what would you say to them for them to be able to grieve? Like, what is something that you would say, um, that you want them to do or realize as they are grieving?
Wow. I look back and that first year, I know for Thanksgiving, I kind of ran away. I went on on my I went skiing on my own. Um, I didn't want to be around anyone. It was too real. Um, and I don't even remember Christmas. So my husband passed in November, and it was around the holidays. I would say continue, do what you feel you want to do. If you want to go away, if you want to be alone, that's fine. If you want to be with family, if you want to go to the beach, what will make you feel, better? Is there anything that will make you feel better? Um, it's a hard thing because it's painful. It's physically painful, and yet it's important not to give up on yourself and to keep going. And what's going to make you keep going? What's going to make you feel a little bit better? Um, and sometimes you feel, there's survivor's guilt. There's no reason for you to be guilty. It's just, I think it's important to cry if you want to cry, to to do something that's going to feel good for you.
That's good. That's good. I think that the most, you know, what I try to encourage people, the most important part, that goes with what you said, Karen, is, but you have to grieve, right?
Yeah.
Like, you should grieve it. So,
Oh, yes.
not, and again, to your point, whether that's that, what that looks like is, I think, tailor made by God for the person.
Yeah.
What does it look like? What does grieving look like to you, right? And it could be
Mhm.
like, for me, when I lost my grandmother during the pandemic, and she and I were very, very close, but she was in Peru and I was here. And, and I remember I just like cried and cried and cried, and I didn't stop until I like passed out on my couch. I fell asleep.
Oh,
And then I woke up, and I just felt this peace about, what, it was her time,
yeah.
and I still miss. And then years later, I went back to Peru to her house, because that's her house over there.
Right.
I went back, and to be honest, I had a moment, right? I had a moment, because it was like, it made it real, right?
Yeah.
So I was in a whole other country, so it made it
Right.
real now, being in her space and
Mhm.
her not being there.
Right.
And so, so there was still even a little grief there, right? A
Mhm.
little grieving process there.
Mhm.
And so again, so it really is, as you said, what is it for you? What does grieving look like for you? You have to grieve, but what does
Right.
that look like? And it doesn't mean that you forget the person. And to your point,
No.
I think it's great that you said, don't be guilty, don't have survivor's guilt. Like, it's not okay just because you're here, right? Don't feel guilty that they're not here. Like, you can't live your life. I think what I love about the fact that your parents, I think the reason why they were okay, keeping on, right, living as if
Right.
nothing, I think it's because they had a peace about them. It was they were at peace with whatever the outcome was going to be.
Right. Because of God, because of their faith. They
Correct.
knew God had a plan and they were going to go along with it, you know?
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is so, so good. I'm so grateful for you coming and sharing here. Please, please share with everybody, just your show, where they can hear you, your book, where they can get it, and how they can get in touch with you.
Oh, okay. All right, great. So my book is on Amazon. Could probably order it through Barnes and Noble, but it is on Amazon. The It's also an audiobook, which I haven't even advertised. I saw it one day on Google. So there is an audio book that's available. The Hope Show is on Sundays at 3:00 live on sosradio.live, or you can go on the site sosradio.live and watch past episodes. The show is about my guests all talk about resilience, and there's been a variety of guests. Or if I don't have a guest, I select a topic and I read a few books and talk about different topics like forgiveness or kindness or invisible illnesses. And I've just been learning a lot through this whole experience. And I'm grateful to have a variety of guests. And I know that Giselle was just on my show. So
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
it's been really great. And my email, if you want, is kmarchione24@gmail.com.
Yes, and I am definitely going to put I'm going to put Karen's information as well on the show notes. And I am so, so grateful for you, Karen. You're truly, truly an inspiration. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you for sharing your heart. Thank you for just all that you're doing. Because it is, even like I said, even if it impacts one person, right?
Right,
That
exactly.
that's what we do it for, right? Just the one that God
That's
has.
right.
So thank you, thank you, thank you. I am grateful to you.
Thank
And
you. Thank you for sharing my story.
yes, absolutely. So listen, everybody, this Karen Marchione, you have to get her book. You have to get her book. Hope how other oh yes, how other people in the world. I was gonna mess it up. And please make sure you listen sosradio.live, listen to the Hope Show. Definitely just get inspired. I know this is a time of year where we all need to just continue to be on that the hope train. We need the hope.
Yeah.
So thank you, thank you, thank you. You know that we're going to come up with another episode in December, and I'm excited. So listen, until then, show up every day, like it is your day one. Okay. And we will see you next time.
All right, great.
Thank you, Karen.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
What's up, day ones? I hope you enjoyed this last episode. Listen, make sure that you like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. Until next time, make every day your day one.